You're earning more now, numbers look better, but something still feels tight, like progress isn't translating into real relief. Your bank account shows stability, your income increased, yet the pressure quietly remains, unchanged, sitting underneath everything you do. Nothing is missing on paper, bills are covered, life improved, but the sense of being behind never fully disappears. You expected freedom, but instead, you feel controlled in a different way. Daniel and Marcus start at the same place, same income, same opportunities, both believing more money will solve everything. Daniel upgrades quickly. Better apartment, better car, small comforts that feel justified because his income has clearly increased over time. Marcus pauses, keeps his lifestyle stable, telling himself it's temporary, even though nothing externally forces him to wait. Same income, different reactions to that income. Daniel tells himself he earned this, that growth should be visible, that success should feel like improvement in everyday life. Marcus tells himself nothing. He just delays decisions, quietly allowing time to create distance between income and spending habits. Daniel's expenses rise naturally. Nothing extreme, just small upgrades stacking into a higher baseline he barely notices forming. Marcus's expenses stay mostly fixed, not by discipline, but by a lack of urgency to prove progress outwardly. It doesn't feel like a big difference. Months pass, Daniel feels stable, but never ahead, always maintaining, always adjusting, never actually building space around his finances. Marcus feels unchanged, slightly restricted, but something underneath is slowly starting to shift in a way he doesn't fully see yet. Welcome to Lion Invests. This channel is about understanding how markets really work and how to make better decisions over the long term. Because successful investing isn't built on predictions or shortcuts. It's built on structure, patience, and managing risk effectively. In this video, we're going to explore why you feel broke, even when you're not, and break it down into something practical. The difference between them isn't visible immediately. It's buried inside patterns that take time before they reveal their actual consequences. And this is where perception starts to separate from reality. You think income creates freedom, but what it actually creates is capacity. And capacity depends entirely on how it's structured over time. Because income alone doesn't decide outcomes, it only amplifies a system already in place underneath your behavior. This is where things start to break down. Daniel's system is reactive. He adjusts spending based on income, assuming growth justifies expansion in every direction. Marcus's system is neutral. He lets income grow without immediately assigning it, creating unused space that slowly compounds silently. Both feel logical in the moment, both feel reasonable, neither feels risky or extreme at all. But one creates pressure, the other creates flexibility. This isn't about one decision, it's about the system behind the decisions. The belief is simple: more money should solve financial stress, but the reality is more money often scales the structure causing it. Because when income increases without system change, behavior follows old patterns at a larger scale, not a smarter one. It feels like progress, but it isn't. Your lifestyle expands to match income, removing the gap required to build actual long-term stability and optionality. That gap is everything. It's the only space where investing, compounding, and future leverage can quietly begin to exist. Without it, you're just maintaining. Daniel unknowingly eliminates that gap, every raise absorbed into new obligations, new expectations, new fixed monthly commitments. Marcus preserves the gap, not perfectly, but enough to allow small amounts of capital to accumulate over time. And that difference compounds slowly. In the first year, nothing changes visibly, both feel similar, both operate within their means, both appear financially stable externally. But under the surface, one system is building pressure, while the other is building optionality without urgency or visible signals. You don't notice it yet. Inflation quietly increases costs, not dramatically, but enough to slowly reduce purchasing power without triggering immediate reaction. Daniel adjusts again. Income rises, expenses follow, maintaining the same level of perceived stability without real advancement. Marcus barely notices inflation because his baseline hasn't expanded enough to make those shifts feel restrictive or urgent. Same environment, different impact. Assets begin to rise in value, housing, equities, ownership-based systems that reward those with excess capital over time. Daniel watches from the outside, knowing he earns enough, but lacking the liquidity to consistently participate in those opportunities. Marcus participates slowly, inconsistently at first, but consistently enough for compounding to start taking effect over years. At this point, it looks like things are working, but this is exactly where the long-term problem begins. Because Daniel feels successful, everything looks aligned, but structurally, nothing is being built beyond his current income level. His system depends entirely on continued earnings, removing resilience if anything changes unexpectedly in his financial environment. It feels secure, but it isn't. Marcus's system begins to detach from income slightly, small investments, small reserves, small buffers that reduce dependence over time. The difference isn't dramatic, but it's directional, and direction compounds far more than an intensity ever does. This leads to something most people miss. Over 5 years, Daniel earns significantly more, but his financial position feels identical, just operating at a higher level of cost. Marcus earns more too, but his expenses lag behind, creating a widening gap that becomes increasingly difficult to close. The gap becomes momentum. Over 10 years, Daniel's lifestyle becomes fixed, reducing flexibility, increasing reliance on consistent income to maintain everything he has built. Marcus's system starts generating partial independence, not complete freedom, but enough to change how decisions are made daily. This is where identity begins to shift. Daniel still thinks in terms of income, raises, promotions, opportunities tied directly to effort and output in the present moment. Marcus starts thinking in terms of systems, allocation, structure, and how money behaves independently of his direct involvement. It's a subtle shift, but it changes everything. Because income is active, but systems are passive, and passive structures scale without requiring constant input over time. Daniel works harder to maintain stability. Marcus works less to maintain optionality, even if neither explicitly planned this outcome. Same starting point, different trajectory. Over 20 years, the divergence becomes undeniable. One system locked into maintenance, the other transitioning into control. Daniel has a high income, but limited flexibility. Every decision tied to maintaining his current financial structure. Marcus has moderate income, but increasing flexibility. Decisions no longer constrained by immediate financial pressure. The outcome isn't random. It's a direct result of how income was structured from the beginning, not how much income was earned overall. This is where most people misunderstand the problem entirely. Assuming income level defines financial stability and long-term security. But it doesn't. Structure defines stability. Income only amplifies whatever structure already exists beneath your behavior and decisions. If the structure is weak, more income accelerates instability, not progress, even if it looks successful externally. If the structure is strong, even moderate income creates leverage over time through compounding and controlled expansion. This is the hidden system. You're not broke because you earn too little. You feel broke because your system removes the space required to build. That space is invisible, but it's the most valuable component of financial growth over long periods of time. Without it, you're always maintaining. With it, you're slowly transitioning into control, even if it doesn't feel like progress in the short term. At some point, the question changes. You stop asking how to earn more and you start asking how your current system is structured and where it's leaking potential. You begin to notice patterns, automatic spending, reactive decisions, lifestyle expansions that feel justified but limit future options. You start thinking differently. You stop chasing income as a solution and start refining the system that determines what income actually does over time. You recognize that behavior compounds just as much as money does, often faster and with more long-term impact. And that realization changes your decisions quietly. You delay upgrades not because you can't afford them, but because you understand what they cost structurally over time. You create space intentionally, not accidentally, allowing time and compounding to begin working in your favor consistently. It doesn't feel exciting, but it feels stable in a way that doesn't depend on constant growth or external validation of success. The pressure starts to fade, not because income increased again, but because the system stopped absorbing everything you earn. You notice it slowly. Decisions feel less urgent, less reactive, more controlled, because you're no longer operating at the edge of your financial capacity. Time starts working with you instead of against you, reducing friction instead of compounding pressure year after year. the difference becomes clear. It was never about how much you earned, it was about how your system handled what you already had available. Income created opportunity, but the system determined whether that opportunity turned into progress or just higher maintenance. And most people never adjust that system, they just scale it. Until eventually, they realize the problem isn't their income, it's their system.